Welcome, everyone. I'm Amy Sam. I am the Health Education Project Specialist at the Maxwell and Eleanor Blum Patient Family Learning Center at Mass General. Today's session is part of our Blum Center Well-Being Series. Before we get started, I just want to go over a few items with you all. Please note that today's session is being recorded for educational purposes. If you're interested in viewing the recording, it'll be made available on the Blum Center website at massgeneral.org/Blum-Center. Please note that you are in listen-only mode. Everyone has music when you hear our guest speaker today. If you have any questions, comments, thoughts you'd like to share, you can do so in the chat box, which is located at the bottom of your screen. We'll have time for them throughout the session. Only Blum Center staff and our guest speaker will see your questions. Please do not share any personal medical information or questions in the chat. If you have a personal medical question, please ask your doctor. Lastly, at the end of today's session, you'll be directed to a brief survey, which we'd like to ask you to help us complete. Your feedback is important to us as we plan future programs. So joining us today, we have Carmen Alvarez. Carmen is a certified positivity and relaxation response training facilitator by the Benson Henry Institute for Mind-Body Medicine. She is also a certified workforce mindfulness facilitator by the Mindful Leader and a certified Sky Wellness coach by the International Association for Human Values. Carmen is also a certified Reiki master and has served as a Reiki therapist at Mass General Hospital and Brigham Women's Hospital in Boston, Mass. Since 2018. She is a co-author of the book, The Happiness of Coaching, released in March 2024. In her book chapter, titled Happiness by Choice, Carmen shares her healing journey after loss and provides practical insights for managing grief and ultimately finding joy again. Carmen serves as the Director of Physician and Patient Engagement at Mass General Brigham International Patient Services with attention to Latin American markets, and she is a member of the Workforce Wellbeing Collaborative Board at Mass General Hospital. She joins us today to lead a session on the science of joy. So please join me in welcoming Carmen.
Thank you, Amy, and welcome everyone. I'd like to say it's so lovely to see all of you. I think that in my heart, I can see you, even though we protect your privacy. So as Amy mentioned, it is a listen-only mode. However, I always invite you to participate in these sessions. It is so important to us that it is interactive and that you're giving your feedback. I will be asking questions along the way. And so I would like for this to feel much more as an interactive experience, if you will. So would love to have your interactions in the chat as we go on. So now, today's session in the Wellbeing Series is about cultivating joy. And the science of joy caught a lot of attention. I think a lot of you are here today because it sparked, curiosity in you. And so I'm so glad. Though I have to say that as a disclaimer, I am not a scientist. So I will not be discussing scientific evidence, if you will. However, science, in the sense of that joy is a practice that we can cultivate in every day. And that's what we'll be discussing today. So I'm very excited that you're here for that. Why don't we get started? I have a question for you because I'm really interested to see where we all are in this. And be completely honest. We're going to do a poll right now. No one can see your answer. Only I will see it. So if you could just say, when was the last time you felt genuine joy? This isn't a judgment. It's just simply for awareness. It's fine if you cannot remember, but try to think. When was the last time you felt joy? And while you're thinking, this is a poll that you should see on your screen. So if you can put your answers in there, we'll give you a minute or two. and then we'll share the answers. And that picture is from a really nice movie. Some of you may recognize it, and that is a character in the movie, and her name is Joy. All right, so I think we're seeing some answers. Okay. Wow, I am so pleasantly surprised to see this. Many of you said today or this week. I am so happy to hear that, and I want to know a little bit more about this. Later on, I'll be asking you to share exactly how you're welcoming and cultivating joy, but that is so wonderful. I'm very happy to hear that. Now, some of us are still saying, well, maybe this week, maybe this month. Um, and some of us are saying, I can't really remember. And that's just fine, as well. It's more normal than you would think. There's a large percentage of us that are going through life, just going through the motions, if you will, not feeling happiness or joy in the way that you might think that is described. But that's what we're here to do today. I want to expand your understanding of joy. In this experience, you having to answer this, let that be your very first moment of awareness. If it's, I cannot remember, or I can't, it was last month, let's just that be awareness that it's good to notice these things. For those of us that said, I cannot even remember, or it was maybe last month, why is it so elusive? Why is it so difficult to find joy? To have joy? And you can put in your chat why you think this is. Why is joy so elusive? Why is it difficult for people to feel joy in their day-to-day life? And I'm going to read your commentary. And obviously, some of it could be stress. Obviously, a lot of us feel a lot of overwhelm. Certainly. Fear, that is a very big one. That is a very big one. That's absolutely right. That's very intuitive of you to say that is fear. That is really, really interesting. We are going to look into this idea that some of us are afraid to feel joy. That's very interesting. Thank you so much for your answers. So what is joy? This is how we may define joy. Is gladness not based on circumstance? It is something you feel, an emotion, but it's not based on any circumstance. And why do I say that? Because joy is not the same as happiness. How many of us used to think that they were one and the same? I can see, I, used to think that too. But happiness is external versus joy is something internal. And we're going to explore why that is today. So happiness is often the result of something outside of us, like success, a moment, an event, versus joy. It's something that we cultivate. Is the result of your inner peace or your satisfaction. So it is something that you can cultivate internally through your inner peace. Joy is not something that is, absence of suffering, but it is the presence of something deeper. And that's where it differs from happiness. And in that perspective, joy arises from presence, connection, and meaning. And that is the difference with happiness. Does that surprise anyone? Does that resonate with you? So now that we've described joy as something that is internal versus external and something that we cultivate internally, I'd like for you to consider this. Joy is not an accident, right? It's not something that we stumble upon. It's something that we must cultivate. So today you'll hear me say this a lot, that joy is a practice and that joy is something that must be intentional. Joy is a skill. It's something that you can strengthen with more and more practice and with intention. It can expand. It expands the more you cultivate it, the more you practice it. That is the good news. Joy becomes more accessible when we learn to steady ourselves, right? To find inner center and inner peace. And the good thing with that is that once you learn that skill, you're able to feel joy regardless of what happens in life. So a joyful life is one that can coexist with other emotions in life. So that is a skill. And this is the importance and the science of joy. The once we learn that it's something you cultivate and that is internal versus external, that is the good news. It's something that you can grow over time with your practice. So joy is what happens when we allow ourselves to be fully present in life. Okay, so then why does it matter? Why does joy matter? So let's make the case for intentional joy. Many of us go through a lot of stress every single day. We're all overwhelmed with many responsibilities and many things in life. That is normal, right? Our nervous system is wired for vigilance. We're always looking for what else, the next thing to drop. And we are simply in that state of survival, most of us, right? So it is incredibly important that we find ways to cultivate a practice that helps us center ourselves. And joy, also, cultivating joy can help you build resilience. Resilience means that regardless of what happens, that you'll be able to navigate those situations, external situations, with more grace, with less pain, with more ease. So joy builds resilience. And the research shows that joy improves the immune system, your function. It can help you with inflammation, cardiovascular health, obviously, your heart rate, and also increases your creativity. So joy is something that helps us physically, mentally, emotionally. It's a beautiful tool that we have, or skill that we can practice that can help improve our lives and our overall well-being. So I mentioned research, and what I'd like to do is share with you a few amazing professionals and scientists that are doing the science and the research and the study of happiness and joy. Many of these that I will share with you, I've had the pleasure of meeting and working with one-to-one. And so it's wonderful. And some of them are right here in Boston. So I'd like to share this with you. Professor Arthur Brooks, he is at the Kennedy School right here at Harvard, and he has come up with the joy equation. For him, the way that he describes happiness, he says that it must have three components in order for you to experience genuine happiness or joy, right? He says you must have enjoyment. And enjoyment he describes as a shared positive emotion. Notice that he says shared is something that you want to share with others, people that you care about, right? So it's a shared emotion. Satisfaction. You also want to have some sense of you're making progress in life. You're working towards something and I'm making progress. So when you get that satisfaction, that's also part of it. And then there's also meaning. And meaning is alignment with your values. So Professor Brooks says that in order for you to feel complete joy, we must have the right balance of all of these three components. You want enjoyment and share that enjoyment, that positive emotion with others, people you care about. You have to have a sense of satisfaction with what you're doing. I'm making progress, I'm moving in the right direction. But also, what you're doing has to have meaning. You have to have alignment with your values. What is important to me? And am I investing my time, what I do, my energy in something that is truly meaningful to me? But he says, if you have all these three and you're clear about them, then that is the formula for happiness. And I invite you to explore Dr. Brooks' work a little bit more. There's a ton of it on YouTube. You can see his talks, and he has great books as well that you can read. This is a wonderful equation in the way that he describes it. So he says joy is relational. So it's something that you share with others. It must be purposeful. So you have to have understanding of what is my purpose in life and what something that brings me meaning. I want to find meaning in what I'm doing every single day. And as we said before, is something that is internally cultivated. So that is, he's been doing research on this for many, many years, for at least 30 years. So invite you to explore his work. The next person, you may be familiar with her. Her name is Brene Brown, and she has amazing TED Talks and books and things that we can read on her research. But she talks about other kinds of dimensions of joy, right? She talks about being vulnerable a lot. And that she says that joy, it's something that we can learn, but it's very vulnerable, right? And why is that? Because it's something that you can grow. It's something that you can actually expand your capacity for joy. You know, many people push joy away, and someone mentioned earlier fear. Many people actually shy away from experiencing joy because they're afraid. Does that resonate with anybody? And please let me know what you think about that. But many of us, especially if we've been through trauma in our lives, we've been through something difficult, whether that was your upbringing, regardless of when it is, or grief. Once you go through something like that, there is a natural response to want to shy away from joy, right? Maybe you feel, I don't want to open myself up. I don't want to be hurt, right? So you want to protect yourself. So you just say no. Guilt. Also, guilt is a good one. Yes, there may be guilt that comes, that arises when you think about joy. Why guilt? Yeah, guilt, because you don't want to feel joy if you feel that a family member is not feeling joy, or you want to feel joy if you've been through something and you feel guilty for. There are many reasons. It's very, very complex and it's very individual, but all of this is very, very human. So I want you to know that this is very human and very normal. So if you've been someone that struggles to welcome joy, I want you to know that this is normal. Now, joy is something that Brene Brown says we collect over time. It fuels your resilience, as I said before. And so it ensures that you have a reservoir of emotional strength so that when difficult times come, you have that resilience built up. But in order to build that in, we have to be intentional about building our capacity to feel joy. So if it's not natural for you, if you are not one of these happy people, you know, those happy-go-lucky people that they're just always happy. I wish we could all be like that, but it's not, we're not all like that. Everyone is built differently. So if you're not a naturally happy-go-lucky person, the good news is that we can learn to grow our capacity to receive joy, to feel joy, to experience joy. So that is the good news. So I want to ask you this. This is a reflective and interactive session. What is your capacity for joy? What do you think if I were to ask you? Is it easy for you to welcome joy, or do you feel resistance when I say that? Perhaps you're here because of you were curious. You know you've noticed this resistance, and so you came to this session to explore that together. If so, I invite you to do that now. When does that resistance come up? Okay, your capacity for joy. Okay, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so joy also, Brene says, is not a constant. I also want you to know that it's not a black or white. You're not going to be joyful, wake up joyful one day, and then now you're joyful. No, it is a path. It is a continual path. And so it's not a constant. It is a string of different moments that we find joyful, and then we're supposed to put those together as we go along in life. And so what's important here is that you recognize that joy comes in the ordinary. It's those little tiny moments that, we often disregard. Twinkle lights is what she calls them. That's what creates a joyful life. It's not having a constant, it's not an overwhelming feeling, right? But it's the accumulation of very brief moments that you can string together. It's once you realize what brings you joy, and then you ensure intentionally that you add that more and more of that into your life. That's what creates the happiness for her. So in order to do that, you have to notice the twinkle lights. What are the twinkle lights in your life? And this is going to be different for every one of us. But for example, she says gratitude. Gratitude is a beautiful way to anchor in joy. We can all be grateful. Regardless of what's going on in your life, I am sure you can find something to be grateful about, right? So use that as your anchor. Once you say, I am grateful for today, I am grateful, that we have a beautiful day. I'm grateful for my colleagues. I am grateful for my family, whatever it is. Or even I'm grateful for this walk. It could be something small but meaningful in your life, and then use that to anchor in. So it is practicing micro gratitude that eventually expands that capacity. Once you allow yourself to enjoy a walk and say, I am so grateful, and this is so joyful that I get to see the flowers, the nature, or I'm so grateful for this beautiful meal, or so grateful for the time with my family. Once you allow that in, have it be felt in your body. Where do you feel joy in your body? Is it in your heart center? I don't know, it's different for all of us. This is simply because you smile. Where do you feel joy? Just notice that and allow it in. Just spend a few moments with that and then expand on that. Welcome that in. The more and more we do this, again, we are going to increase our capacity to feel and receive more and more of it. Does that make sense to everyone? So Renee is amazing. She has great talks. So I invite you to uh, listen to a little bit more of her. And now this is another Harvard professor. He is a faculty member right here at MGH. He's part of the psychology department, and we love him so very much. He has been running the longest standing study on happiness in history. I think he started in the 70s with this. He started originally, it was two groups of 19-year-old Harvard sophomores, and he wanted to study happiness in this group of, boys from some Boston neighborhoods. But the study since then has been so successful, and it has been evolving. And so now, even today, the study is expanded to include participants of all genders and many different dimensions. We were saying that the key findings of this study is that the most consistent and central finding is that good relationships keep people happier and healthier for longer. That's incredible that of all the dimensions and the aspects of life, he found that having a consistent network of people all around you is what keeps people physically well and mentally well. It's the quality of one's social connections that is the strongest predictor of how long you live and how happy you are. So much more than wealth or social class or even your genes. That's incredible. Does that surprise anybody? So he also says joy is relational. We all know that loneliness is toxic to the mind and the body. And I'm afraid to say that, research shows that we are in a loneliness epidemic. In fact, many people are saying that the next epidemic and the next, big pandemic that we have to deal with is the loneliness factor. It's growing among different groups. So therefore, micro moments of connection increase the positive hormone in your brain that, that gives you that sense of connection with people. So that is the one aspect that predicts your how well you are. And it is also something that will shift your nervous system from survival to safety, connection, relationships. He says they're not only essential as a stepping stone, but they are functional routes to health and to happiness. So it's very, very important. And we all knew this, but to see the research backing it up, that it's even more of a predictor than genes is incredible. Now, what else? Dr. Kelly Harding, she is a professor at Columbia, and she has been doing a study specifically on kindness to see the science of kindness and the effect on our own well-being. So kindness also releases that happy hormone that keeps us going, right? And that hormone, oxytocin, reduces inflammation. That's incredible in the body. But also, kindness improves our satisfaction, there's that word again, and our resilience. And in healthcare as well, and what we do, those of us who work in healthcare, kindness is really important. It also can help us reduce burnout, right? She studies burnout too a lot. So she says the smallest gestures of kindness create the greatest physiological shifts. She has been studying this in her own patients. She is an internist, and so she has patients that she sees. And she has noticed that those who have a strong community around them, those who have the capacity and ability and opportunity to experience acts of kindness, regardless of how small, in her patients, she sees that they have the greatest capacity to thrive. So it's the community, the relationship, and when you are open to experience and to providing as well, it's not only receiving, but also providing and doing these small acts of kindness actually help you be healthier and live longer. She is a physician and a public health expert, as you can see here, and I invite you to read her book, The Rabbit Effect. And it's a book in which she shares her research on how to live happier and healthier with the groundbreaking science of kindness, as she says. So it's about social connection, is purpose also, and it's about kindness as a practice, regardless of how small. It can have an effect not only on the person that receives the kindness, but most amazingly, is that it has an effect equally or greater on the person providing the act of kindness. So next time that you think about holding the door for someone, don't you think you're doing them a favor by holding the door? Realize that that is also good for you to do the act of kindness. So a little bit more on the neuroscience of joy. The neuroscience of joy involves a complex interplay of specific brain regions, and these words have been coming up in the research that I shared with you just previous to this, but it's all examining in the brain how this is a system of reward and motivation. And this intricate is circuits that are associated with the experiences of pleasure, of contentment, and meaningful engagement. All of this can be physically shaped and rewired by our experiences and practices in something called neuroplasticity. These are hormones that exist in our body. And you can, for example, dopamine is the reward chemical, and it's what you feel when you celebrate success, when you eat dark chocolate. So there's a reason for, eating chocolate. Here's the argument. Also, when you exercise, when you meditate, when you listen to music, or when you get out in the sun. That's why it's so good for the brain. It's physically good for the brain. You are releasing dopamine. Now, endorphin is the natural painkiller, right? And so how do you achieve that? You can do that by dancing and exercise. It could be laughter, a long hot bath as well. Again, eating chocolate, more arguments for eating dark chocolate. And the random acts of kindness helps with pain. If you're kind to someone else, it helps with your own experience of pain. That is amazing. So you can see here, obviously in serotonin, we haven't talked about that, but it's the equalizer, right? Again, it's time in the sun, deep breathing, and we do a lot of that in mindfulness, exercise, meditation. Again, these are things that release these happy hormones in you. And what happens if we know that doing these very simple, enjoyable things are changing the hormones in your brain? Here's the great news I have for all of you. Your body is literally wired for joy. So here's a little bit more science for you, right? This is as scientific as we're going to get. That your body is literally wired for joy. Great news. It is a concept, right? If you want to read a little bit more about it, the book is called Wired for Joy by Dr. Lauren Mellon. But she studies that the brain's neural pathways can be retrained through a specific method to reduce stress and increase feelings of well-being. This means that depending on the practices that you do, right, it increases your happiness and therefore your joy. This could be cultivated deliberately by intention. If you're intentional about practicing any of these little tiny micro moments of joy, of enjoyment, you are literally rewiring your brain. So joy is not something that you earn, but it is something that you access and something that you cultivate more of. So it's basically you increase the capacity to enjoy different things or to perceive more happiness, more joy, more beauty in life, the more you do it. So here's the argument for those of us who may feel that joy does not come naturally, or that we're not those, naturally happy-go-lucky people. Here's the science to say we can actually increase our capacity for joy if we pay attention to the micro moments. We talked about gratitude earlier, but it could be a walk in the sun or anything that brings you joy. The more you do that intentionally and then pause and say, this is lovely. I enjoy this. The more you do that, you're teaching your brain to increase capacity for more and more of that. So that is the great news. So this is something that we can grow more and more. I hope you're happy. That's good news. I mean, I was very happy to learn about this. So rewire your brain, intentional ways to add more joy in your life. So what are the different ways that we could do that? So for example, look for small moments of connection with people, with your colleagues, with your family. It could be something as simple as sharing warm eye contact. Do you know that? Eye contact can also do the same thing. That also sends those signals to your brain that you are connecting with someone, and that in fact then starts that hormone secretion of the hormones, the happiness hormones and connection. Find meaning in your work and service to others, as we were saying earlier. Practice kindness. Do the smallest little things as well. Those are helpful to others and to yourself. And do the mini gratitude pauses during the day. Just pause for 10 seconds and say, I am grateful for this. I'm grateful that, I have connection to you again, so that we could be here together and finish the presentation. So I invite you to do this. Make a list of the joys in your life and then keep adding to them every single day. So I think, as often we do here is I'd like for us to practice this together. If you don't mind including in the chat here and sharing with us, what are the ways in which you are grateful today? What are you grateful for today that you like to note and you want to maybe add to your list and keep adding to it as well? So mindfulness is a way, as a tool, that could be a pathway to help you with this joy, the practice of cultivating more joy. So here's a quick practice. Again, I'm asking you to do this with me here for a few seconds, a few moments. Find small memory. It could be something from the past. It doesn't matter when it happened, but think about a time when you felt very joyful. And see if you can recall the details of that memory and why it brought you joy. Maybe it was sights or sounds, the smell, the temperature. Allow your mind to get back to the memory. If it helps, you can place a hand over your chest so that you can see where joy sits in you. And take a deep breath in and see what happens when you bring back that memory. And then once you have and connect with that memory and notice how it feels in you, then allow that feeling to seed, if you will, more joy in you. So again, what we're doing is noticing it, pausing it, so that the brain can you can note that in as this is a positive feeling. This is something I want more of. And it's training your brain to look for more of those little moments, whatever that memory was, whether it was a flower you smelled or a walk or something you ate or connection with someone or whatever it is you're signaling to your brain that this is joyful. I want more of this. By doing this practice intentionally, it increases a positive effect by 42%. So again, just be intentional about bringing more and more of that practice into your life every single day. So another quick practice is micro movement, actually. So during the day, you may pause for 10 seconds in the middle of whatever it is that you're doing and do 30 seconds of gentle, playful movement. You can dance. You can get up and dance if you want to, if you have the ability to do that where you work. But it could also be a slow sway. Just stop and do whatever it is. Move your shoulders, welcome in any movement. Any little movement, no performance, right? This is just natural movement. Anything that connects you to the sensations in the body. And just pause and notice where the energy goes. These are tiny, tiny things that you can do, signaling to your body to move, to be more playful. It shifts the energy, right? If you're tense, if you pause that, interrupt that, the energy flows to in a different way. So it interrupts your stress response when you get up and move. And that's something that we practice and that we want to do more of. So train your body for it. So train your body that when you move, you're dancing, I feel the flow, I feel relaxed. That is a joyful moment for you. That is how you indicate to your body and to your brain, you're training your body and your brain to be more open to joy via movement, whether it is a walk or whatever it is. Again, little shifts that is the micro movement that can change the nervous system once you indicate that it is a positive response for you. More practices, practice micro moments. Let's do a little scan, if you will, to see where is joy in your body right now. So if we close our eyes, if you enjoy, join me for a minute in closing your eyes. And now recall a moment in the last 24 hours that brought you joy. Again, just notice where that lives in your body. And then let it expand. You could feel it in your heart. It could be very different for everybody. And perhaps you feel warmth, or maybe you feel openness, but just be very curious about this. It's a joyful moment, regardless of what it is. It could be someone is saying, laughing and smiling, or it could be meeting a friend, but it could also be something you felt, during a walk, or maybe you connected with a patient you saw, and maybe you exchanged a smile with someone. Just think about what it is. Someone held the door for you. Just whatever it is, connect with it and see where in your body you feel that joy, maybe that gratitude. That was so nice of them, right? And so now expand on that and notice it. Now, that intentionality of noticing it and it wires your brain to welcome more of those during the day. Because now your brain is going to be looking for those micro moments during the day when you can bring in more joy. It's a fun practice, right? It's once you start doing this, it becomes a lot easier to do. Another little practice, and we've been doing this, but it's the 10-second gratitude during the day. So think about one thing that you're grateful for. We could do this right now. Name it internally to yourself. Take a deep breath in and receive it as you think about it. What am I deeply grateful for? Think about it, receive it. Breathe in. Oh, that's incredible. Those are very, very easy days. So practicing gratitude doesn't require any grand gesture, right? Like something big, like it says here. It's just a small moment to notice something thoughtful that someone did for you, any little thing. And I invite you to be curious about it. If you have to put your hand over your chest and see and recognize where in your body you feel the joy, you feel that gratitude, recognize it as joy. Keep a journal. We talked about making, once you start recognizing these micro moments, to keep a journal of these things so that you start to recognize and get to know yourself better. Obviously, spending time with loved ones is a good one. And service to others, giving back to someone, it's incredible. Volunteering, when you volunteer and you do acts of kindness, is again, it's not just for it's not for the other person, but it's so much for yourself as it is for the other that you're helping. And also just simply say thank you more often. Just smile and express gratitude to others a lot more often can make a big, big difference in your capacity for joy, in feeling joy. Just simply saying thank you for the smallest of things to someone that's helping you can go a long way to rewire your brain. Okay, and so one last aspect that I wanted to discuss before we close and open it up for comments is you may be thinking, okay, well, that is nice, but what if I am still sad? Or I cannot do that because I have something very sad in my life. And I want to address it because I come to you as someone who discovered the practice of joy through loss. I lost someone I loved very dearly some years ago. And to be honest, when that happened, I thought I could never feel joy again. But it was through my intentionality when I was going through the grief process that I discovered that I could cultivate a practice of gratitude, a practice of helping others is what brought me joy, is what brought me meaning. And that's what eased my healing, actually. So joy is not a betrayal to your grief. So if you are in grief right now, or there is something painful or any adversity in your life right now, I want you to know that I'm not saying that, that you need to ignore that. But I'm saying that both can coexist. It is both. Joy gives grief a soft place to land. And again, joy gives you, as it did for me, it created a place in which I could actually heal more with more ease, as I experienced, gentle ways to help others or do a walk. And it brought meaning to my life. As you bring more meaning to your life, you experience more joy, and that will help with your grief and your healing or whatever it is that you're going through. So joy can exist with pain. I just want to acknowledge that. Um, Here are different ways that we can navigate this together. So first, acknowledge that it is okay to feel both. You can feel joy and feel pain. It could allow yourself to feel happiness without any guilt. It doesn't diminish your pain or disrespect what you're going through if you experience joy. So acknowledge that and make room for both. And then this is very, very deep, but find meaning in the pain. It is possible that through the lessons, perhaps there's insights, there's something to be learned through the difficult time, and this can bring meaning to your life. And as you saw from the research, and Professor Brooks tells us that when you find meaning and you connect to something in your life that gives you meaning, then that eventually turns into joy because you're doing something that is meaningful to you. You can honor the past while also embracing the present. Oftentimes, we spend a lot of time in the past, with grief or regrets or guilt we talked about, but bring yourself to the present moment. And that's the beauty and the science of joy, is that when you connect with something in the present moment, joy is felt in the present moment. And so it's going to help you come back to the present more and more. And you can have the ability to create new memories and more happy memories in this way. Engage in activities you enjoy. We've been discussing this, simple things like exercise, spending time in nature, and other things. And seek support too. Right now the EAP at MGH has a grief bereavement group that comes together weekly. And so there are many support groups in our community. If you need a list or more help with that, please send me an email and I'll be happy to share some of those with you. But this is just to say, I acknowledge that we are not all just simply happy. I acknowledge that all of us have sadness or grief and pain and difficulty. But I am making the argument for making room for both, and that joy can actually help you heal. So bringing it all together, here, joy is it's an internal emotion, and happiness is based on things that are external. So the joy equals intention, connection, presence, your values, meaning, and satisfaction. You are wired for joy, meaning your brain is ready. It is ready to learn and to cultivate. The more you cultivate joy, the more your brain will expand and rewire for happiness. So the brain can learn and have that capacity for joy. So small daily practice can rewire your brain. And joy and the experience of hardship or adversity or grief can coexist. We just discussed that. Cultivating joy in life will ease your path towards healing. The amazing thing about joy. So now we can take a moment to reflect, and maybe you can create your personal plan here. And I would love to hear from you in the chat after what we've discussed. Where will you invite more joy today? Where can we allow or welcome more joy today? Maybe it's in your relationships. Maybe it's in one small moment throughout the day, welcoming more of those. Maybe it's more gratitude. Maybe it's to look at small acts of kindness in a very different way. Now that we saw Dr. Harding's research, right? Maybe it's through mindfulness and you want to do your, breathing, deep breathing, moments of breath, moments of meditation. Gratitude. A lot of people saying gratitude, great. Gratitude is such an easy thing to do that allows us to heal. and to welcome joy is the easiest thing that we could do. So thank you so much for writing in your answers. So think about this, and if any of this has made sense to you, please, yeah, mindfulness. Okay, great. Yes, more mindfulness, the breath work. And the good thing is that in this series here, every month we tackle one aspect of mindfulness and we discuss ways in which you can bring more mindfulness into your life. So we did some of that throughout the talk today, the time together when we closed our eyes for 2 minutes and reflected. That's mindfulness. So congratulations. And I want to thank you for being here, and thank yourselves for giving yourselves this moment to be here and to join the community to learn about joy. I wish you much, much more joy in your life. I wanted to share some resources. Like I mentioned, the EAP, if you are at MGH, the Employee Assistance Program has a ton of resources on their website. We also have on our website at MGH Workforce Wellbeing Collaborative, we have tons of little things that you can take with you. We have mindfulness on the go. As you can see here, there's tons that you can download. There is a free meditation apps that are free to MGH. So you can download those there as well if you want. You could go ahead and scan this. If you put your phone over the QR code, you can scan those resources and bring them with you. And we can also email this to you or put it on our Blum Center website as well, so that you have more access to the mindfulness. And with that, I think we are at time. So thank you so much for being here and for participating. I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you so much,
Thing.
Carmen. I'm going to enter in the chat, save the date. Our next well-being session will be actually on mindfulness practices for daily life, and that will be on Thursday, December 4th at 12 p.m. as well. Visit our website. I provide the link in the chat where you'll get more information on that, as well as the Zoom link to attend.
Great, wonderful. And I can provide more of the resources that I shared today as well, the research, that all the wonderful resources that we covered, but also the science and the research that is there, the books. I can send that to you, Amy, to put on the website as well.
Thank you so much. And for everyone joining us today, thank you so much. Hopefully you found today's session helpful. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.